Let's call on our next guest for his expertise. Joining us now, Matt Kibbe, the president and CEO of FreedomWorks. He is also the author of that book with the great name, Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff, a libertarian manifesto. Matt, we don't want to take from you. We just want you to share your insights politically. What's going to happen in Georgia in this gubernatorial race? Are they going to end up in a runoff?
You know, it looks likely that that might happen both in the governor's race, but also in the Senate race. And that could well be the race that decides whether or not Republicans have the majority. It's interesting that this election for governors and for members of Congress and for senators should look a lot more like 2010. You just played that clip from Barack Obama. He has said that this is a mandate. This election is a mandate on his policies. And in 2010, we had a wave election, but things are much tighter in this cycle, and it's going to be a low turnout election, and it's going to be all about who's able to get out the vote, who has the mechanics right. And we should be anxious about that because the Democrats do know how to turn out their base.
Not only do they understand how to turn out their base, but in Georgia, they've got legacy campaigns going on. We talked about Jason Carter as we transition from the gubernatorial race there to the Senate campaign. There is Michelle Nunn, the daughter of former Democrat Senator Sam Nunn, against David Perdue. And polling is showing Nunn with a narrow lead. How do you see that senatorial race playing out?
You know, that is so frustrating because Georgia should have been one of the states that you would have already taken off the table. It should be a Republican win. Perdue has run an erratic campaign, a frustrating campaign. Michelle Nunn is running on her dad's name, you know, and in a low turnout election, we should be anxious about that. I would predict that Republicans are going to lose a seat like a Georgia, other states where we should have we should have nailed it early on. But I'll tell you, it's all about get out the vote, and Perdue has gone back and forth, but this is one we need to keep.
And you take a look at Georgia, and I hate to speculate, and I hate to put ideas in the minds of those who might monitor this broadcast, but as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, if there is a runoff needed, that runoff for the Senate would not take place until January 6th, and I believe the new Congress convenes on January 5th, the next session of Congress, correct? So, yeah. Well, actually, there's a lame duck session here. Let me correct myself. Does this set up a stage for Joe Biden to come in and for all sorts of hijinks to take place in the Senate? If Harry Reid is still the de facto leader for the Democrats, if it comes down to a one-seat margin and we're waiting on a Georgia runoff?
Definitely. I mean, that's a scenario that's possible. I think it would be a bad year for Republicans if it becomes that close. And you have a slightly different dynamic in Louisiana where we won't know for certain who that candidate is until December. So there's all sorts of wild cards here if we don't have clean victories in a lot of these states where we should be winning. A lot of them show Republicans up over the Democrat incumbent, but just by a couple points, by the margin of error. It's so starkly different than 2010 when at this time in a purple state like Florida, Marco Rubio was up 14 points. We were talking to Ron Johnson just a minute ago. He was up 8 points in Wisconsin in 2010. This is a very tight election.
What accounts for the apparent Democratic success in terms of these Senate races? Does it just simply come down to incumbency?
No, well, they've been very good at distancing themselves from Barack Obama. They've gone out of their way even to deny having voted for him for president. But I think the other half of this is the lack of a clear, positive set of policies coming from Republican candidates. A lot of them are playing run out the clock politics, hoping that voters simply reject Barack Obama, whose popularity is in the 30s right now. Different than 2010. We were running on balancing the budget. We were running on repealing Obamacare and replacing it with a patient-driven system. Some candidates are starting to get that in 2014, but they're a little slow on the start. And I think without that, the independents that turned out in 2010 are still looking for that alternative to the failed Democratic policies.
Well, it's always dangerous to start finger pointing before a campaign. It's not my intent, but yet we need to put the question squarely and address the matter in the minute and a half we have left. In retrospect, should Speaker Boehner and Leader Mitch McConnell, should they have gotten together on a form of a new contract with America, or call it an agenda for the American future, some set of action items that would be a positive agenda and a plan?
Yes, absolutely. And remember, in 2010, they followed the grassroots who crowdsourced that contract from America, those 10 policy points that virtually every Republican ran on. I don't think it's too late, but authenticity matters. And if you look at 1980, you look at 1994, you look at 2010, years when Republicans did very well, they were running on policies. They were running as an alternative to the Democrats' failed policies. We got to get back to that. There's this mythology amongst the consultant class in Washington that it's best not to talk about what you believe in. I just reject that. I think it's a failed strategy.
Well, we need you to make a prediction now. 15 seconds remain. Will the Senate go GOP?
The Senate will go GOP. It's going to be tighter than we would have liked, but this is the year when Republicans should win with Democratic policies being
Fair
rejected.
enough. We really appreciated Matt Kibbe Skyping in from Washington, D.C. More on America's Forum following this Newsmax Now update.